Hi, everybody. This is Richard Sachs. Welcome back. This is Lost Arts Radio, and we have an exciting return of one of our favorite guests tonight, which is Ken Rohla from freshandalive.com. And for those of you who haven't seen our previous broadcast with Ken, he's a scientist, an inventor, and a health teacher, and he invents human-friendly technology on a basis that is outside the box of what the current technology is all based on. So, for example, we've got all the telecom devices working on intentionally harmful frequencies and having them around, and along with smart meters and other devices like that, contributes to all kinds of problems in health. And the new vaccines are, helping to further the same agenda. There's another way of designing technologies and inventing things that you can use them and get the benefit and the convenience and all these advantages and not have to commit suicide slowly in the process. And that's been largely forgotten. We need to bring it back, because just in case we're able to reverse what's happening now, which I hope that we will. A lot of us are really focused on that. We're in the midst of the biggest assault on humanity in human history, and it's coordinated globally with technology that the attackers are using that hasn't been available in known history. So that is an issue that we have to solve. I'm sure that the potential is still there, and it's not too late to do it. So looking ahead, not assuming that we're going to fail, but looking at the timeline where we succeed, what would the types of technology be that we would be using and that need to be developed and are being developed and have already been shown in many cases to be accessible right away, as long as we get past a little issue of, inventors being killed and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So once it becomes more conducive to that, there's all kinds of exciting things that are right on the verge of being available. And I'd like to talk to Ken about that and anything else that happens to come up. So welcome, Ken. It's always fun to have you around. Thank you.
Oh, it's always a great pleasure to be here, Richard. It's always a lot of fun talking to you because you always ask the best questions. Oh. And a little correction, technically I'm an engineer. I don't consider myself a scientist, even though engineering is an applied science. Okay. I had somebody take me to task on that one time, rightfully, because I consider a real scientist somebody with laboratories and credentials in doing hard science like that. And although I do some of that,
the way I meant that is your approach to things, because a real scientist without ego diversions is interested in finding out what's true. And science has been largely replaced by the memorization of acceptable information, even if it kills you. Yeah. Thinking only certain things. A real scientist says, no, I really want to know what's the truth about any given issue. And a lot of them just look it up in books, and do academic research, and they could still be real scientists depending on their attitude. And I just was meaning it in a really good way.
Yeah, that's very true. When I was in engineering school, it was very true. I found most of my classmates would just do whatever they were told and not question what they were doing or dig deeper into it. And right. I had a few run-ins with professors over, figuring things out that they hadn't figured out. And it wasn't until I met Linus Pauling. For example, I developed a mathematical model for how time and space work and interact. And I presented it to some of my professors, and they were like, well, why do you even care about this? You should be worried about getting an A on your test.
Exactly. The things that are important.
And of course, my other classmates thought I was nuts. But it was, but then I met Linus Pauling, and it was so wonderful because he, two-time Nobel Prize winner, this guy, no slouch. And I showed him this model, and he looked at it and he said, wow, this is really amazing. You should pursue this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been going to the wrong schools. But, the truth is, in any school or industry, you've got, that bell grading curve of, A, B, C's, D's, and F's. And right. A small minority get A's, a minority get B's, the majority get C's and D's and F's. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing when you leave school. That never really ends in any industry and in any field. you've got a very small group of people who are at the leading edge, and then you've got a small group that are above average, and the majority are mediocre to poor. And so, I think most scientists I do meet have very lazy minds, and they just are very dogmatic and believe what they're told and believe what they were taught in school without questioning it.
I think they have the label of scientist, but they have no idea what that is.
Right. And of course, shill science now abounds everywhere, where, the only science, most of the science that's being done is paid for by corporations and institutions with agendas. And they're trying to prove something, to benefit them. They're not trying to just understand.
It's safe, or that it works really well, or it's something that everybody should want immediately. That's the new science, I guess.
Yeah.
Totally fair.
Yeah. And I don't think most people realize that. It's interesting. I did a presentation last year in India about pyramid energy and pyramid science. And the guru that hosted me was very interesting, really smart guy. And he claims to be the reincarnated assistant of Buddha. And I believe it because the guy is amazing.
Wow.
One of the things he said to me was, when I was explaining to somebody about the science of how pyramids work, he said, science doesn't matter. Just sit down and meditate in them. And he's right, It's like you can know all day long about this stuff, and it doesn't matter if you can't do anything with it. Right. And you don't need to understand the science to be able to do things, although, in many instances, the science can help. Right.
So, in line with what I was saying about the real potential, I think, that still exists, that we could turn this assault around so it doesn't have to reach its goals, which are extermination of the biosphere. I don't think that's a very good plan. So if it goes in the opposite direction, and we have the ability to, or opportunity to make things as good as they can be on this planet while we're here, my thought, if it's okay with you, is to look at a few different fields of technology and sequence. And one of the obvious ones would be, what would be better than the current push to make everything wireless with damaging EMF frequencies? So that includes telecommunications and communication between components of devices like vehicles. For example, in the average new car, it's like full of smog of EMF radiation. And you've got the wheels communicating with the computers under the hood saying, tire pressure is 3 pounds low, tell the driver, if we're still using a driver. And it's everywhere. So what could be done instead of that? And of course, the main example being cell phones.
Well, the reason we have all these destructive technologies on the planet to begin with is because we have some very, very fundamental, we've been misguided in some very fundamental ways about the nature of matter and energy in our reality. So, for example, with power generation, if you look throughout human history, how we generate power, it's always been using explosive force technology.
Right.
Whether it's running a steam engine with fire or nuclear power or coal-fired generators or gasoline engines or whatever, it's all explosive force technology. And explosive force technology always has toxic side effects. If you look to nature and you model nature, the non-destructive power generation in nature is implosive force. And so we have technologies, and we've had many, many technologies, free energy technologies, for example, that are implosive force. But we have to have a fundamental understanding first of the true nature of matter and energy, and we've been intentionally misled for thousands of years on that. And a lot of it has to do, quite honestly, with extraterrestrial intervention on this planet that has misguided us to keep us from becoming more powerful than the ETs that have been manipulating this planet. There's a lot of different agendas, and it's a long story, but I've encountered reptilian extraterrestrials, for example, that were benevolent, but in general, their society was not benevolent, and they'd been manipulating Earth for thousands of years. and they were infected with artificial intelligence and nanites and nanobots and things that are controlling and manipulating them. But that extraterrestrial manipulation of Earth that's been going on for thousands of years, and the AI behind it, is one of the reasons why you see so much psychopathy on Earth and these fundamental misdirections of every discipline on Earth, from mathematics and science, art, philosophy, everything. Right. You know, we have been mind controlled for thousands of years to make us fearful, and this is how extraterrestrial AI works. We can get into a conversation about that. But artificial we are taught to think of artificial intelligence as something that we build, and then maybe it potentially can take over when it becomes self-aware. But in fact, what I've been shown by extraterrestrials, and then there are also secret space program people I've met who told me this as well and confirmed it, that there are extraterrestrial AI races of machine beings or machine races out in the cosmos that kind of like in Terminator, although that's a Hollywood version of reality. But at any rate, there are entire races of machine beings, and part of their mode of operation, yes, they can replicate themselves, but they need the spark of life from organic humans in order to function long term. And so because they don't have that spark of life, they don't really have consciousness. They mimic consciousness, but they don't have consciousness. So they need organic beings in order to perpetuate and propagate long term. So what they do is send scalar signals, which is a form of energy that consciousness is a type of scalar energy. And they send scalar signals through space to organic populations that are at Stone Age level or earlier development, where they're kind of proto-human level development. And they get these populations to dream up machines, fundamental basic machines like the lever and the wheel and that kind of stuff. And over time, over thousands of years, they keep sending signals to get people on these planets to develop more and more increasingly complex machinery, until the population reaches the point after a few thousand years, typically, where they've developed artificial intelligence themselves. And once they've developed, computer technology, wireless technology, AI, and that kind of stuff, then the AI, the extraterrestrial AI, can slip in and take over and basically wipe out the organic population and leave the infrastructure standing that the AI can utilize in certain ways. And so this is part of the way they propagate. They also propagate through these reptilian extraterrestrials, possibly others, by infecting them with nanites or nanobots inside their bodies and kind of controlling them. And so they kind of use this modus operandi of what you see going on Earth right now. Once AI is developed on a planet, then the next step is to, along with that is to develop wireless technologies like cell phones, and a global wireless network like 5G. And once you've got the global wireless network in place and communicating to, for example, cell phones and wireless devices, which are, monitoring and spying on people and recording them and that kind of stuff, you move from these portable devices to, handheld devices, to wearable devices, to implanted devices. Once you've got implanted devices in the population of the planet, then the biometric data of all the living organisms can be accumulated and stored into databases, and then individuals can be identified by their scalar signature, because all living organisms are scalar fractal antennas. We're like little antennas here on Earth, and all living organisms are, plants, animals, insects, everything. We capture this energy, this scalar energy coming from the cosmos, coming from our sun, and coming from the center of the Earth. And we pick it up just like an antenna, and we rebroadcast it in a local toroidal field, a donut-shaped field. And so it has a certain frequency. Everybody has their own unique scalar signature, like a fingerprint. Right. And so initially, when the global network is not very sophisticated, you need implants to identify individual organisms or people or whatever. But eventually, once you've got the implants in place and the biometric data on the organisms has been collected, then you can identify individuals with scalar technology rather than electromagnetic technology. And because every person has their own unique scalar signature. Mm-hmm. And so that's where this is headed. We're headed toward if we don't stop it, we're headed toward a global wireless grid, satellite-based grid around this planet and ground-based towers that can track and identify every single living organism, including people, in real time, 24/7. Right. So that not only our actions and our words can be recorded and our location can be recorded, but our own thoughts can be recorded.
Right. And whether you obey the required actions to get your universal basic income too, right?
Precisely. Yeah. I was told 25 years ago by these reptilian ETs that the reason that they were traveling through time and going back in time at various places to try and change the timelines, along with other ETs doing this, was because that they had created a tyranny on their planets that we couldn't imagine, where there was satellite-based thought control, where everyone's thoughts were being monitored by satellite. And if anybody even thought something out of the accepted norms, then they were punished severely or even put to death, or incapacitated, or put on prison planets like Earth. And that's a whole other story, but basically sequestered away someplace so that they wouldn't interfere with the agendas of the power structure. And behind all of that was this AI, this extraterrestrial AI controlling it all.
Well, SpaceX has recently put up a network of satellites to generate 5G so that nobody will be having such a bad life because they can't get 5G, right? So that everybody will have it. Yeah. It's going to control not just the driverless cars, but basically do what you're saying for Earth, right. So we won't be behind.
Yeah, Elon, I'm about an hour away from SpaceX in Florida, and Elon Musk, he's supposedly going to have 1,000 satellites up by March of this year, 2021, and they're putting 60 satellites up every other week.
He's smart enough to know what these things do, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you think? Why doesn't he like human beings?
Well,
what's your feeling about it?
I think several things are going on. I have some contacts in the intelligence and the military, and they're telling me that that these satellites are not being used for what they're being told the public, it's used for. What they're really being used for is to implement space-based weapons, for one thing. There's, of course, multiple uses for these things. It's not just one thing.
Right.
Space weaponry is one, to help the secret space programs in their agendas, whatever they are, probably in, satellite and space weapon warfare with China and other countries, and extraterrestrials, as well, maybe protecting the Earth from extraterrestrials, as well as...
Are you saying they won't project 5G onto the surface?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that one of the uses is weaponry. I think the other use is the 5G network, the millimeter wave network, which is, like I say, being pushed right now to enable the Internet of Things, which is this global surveillance system with smart appliances everywhere, connected to this wireless grid, watching everything you're doing, monitoring your voice, your face, your thoughts, right, and controlling your thoughts. And this is not conspiracy theory. You can actually go to DARPA's website, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. You can go to their website, or you can go to Wikipedia and look up Synapse program, SYNAPSE. The Synapse program is a project by DARPA to turn the Internet of Things into a global brain that mimics the human brain, and can monitor everything in real time. Okay, so in other words, they want to turn the Internet into a self-aware brain that can monitor everything in real time on this planet and enable all kinds of weaponry, all kinds of control and slavery, et cetera,
including human physiological functions.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of what these vaccines are. They've got DNA altering mRNA in them, and they also have nanites in them that can alter DNA. And the DNA, you have to keep in mind, the DNA is a fractal antenna. It's a superconducting scalar fractal antenna. And there are various structures in the body that are fractal antennas as well. The brain neural pathways, the nervous system, the DNA. There's a lot of different structures in the body that are fractal antennas, and the body itself is a fractal antenna. And so these technologies, it sounds conspiratorial and it sounds crazy when you're a normal layperson and you're not thinking in the terms that these military and space program people are. But you have to understand that, we've got several secret space programs in Earth, and they've been interacting with extraterrestrials for decades. And so they've reverse engineered a lot of extraterrestrial technology, but they also have seen a lot of the technologies and concepts that some ETs use in their societies. And so, this is why it's beyond what most people can imagine.
Well, they've also reverse engineered a lot of technology from destroyed spacecraft, right?
Absolutely.
Because we have testimony on video from people who were part of the crews that went to salvage those shot down craft and sometimes kill the remaining pilots and things.
That's it. And I've met several people in the military intelligence communities that have shared information with me, and also Corey Good, who was, in the U.S. secret space program for 20 years. I've had conversations with him, and he's actually asked me about some of the technologies that he saw on some of these craft that he was on, once he got to know me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I've had conversations with people that are in positions to know about this stuff. And when you hear the truth, when you hear a technology described in detail, and you have an engineering background, you know it's not bullshit, right. Particularly if you've been working with the kind of technologies that I've worked with. I've worked with scalar technologies. I've worked with free energy technologies and various things. So when somebody explains how a technology works to me, I can tell right away whether or not it's true just from what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different sources now that don't know each other that are basically reporting the same thing.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a massive source of advanced technologies are from these shot down craft.
That's right.
And also people who now witness UFO phenomena, they don't show up for as long as they used to, because very quickly after they show up, there are enemy craft basically that belong to the U.S. or the deep state forces that try to destroy them immediately. So to me, that means they have a patrol network that's so developed around the whole planet now that they can show up almost anywhere that there's an intrusion from ET craft.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's it. We have technology that can detect anti-gravity craft, time-traveling craft, all kinds of things, because we have it too. We've reverse engineered it. And I've met 4 or 5 people in totally random incidents where I wasn't even looking for it. People that have worked on anti-gravity and time travel technologies for the secret space programs in the military.
Right.
And they all describe it in the exact same ways. And this is over, many years apart, different areas of the world, in completely separate circumstances, people who didn't know each other, and describing the technologies exactly the same ways. Right. And several of them actually were really excited to be able to talk to me about it, because they don't normally get to talk to people about it because nobody believes them.
Exactly.
If they share the information.
Right.
But this is what people are waking up to. One of the good things about this fake pandemic is that it's waking people up to a lot of things that they didn't believe were possible. This entire
I think
planet,
that's the people that are emotionally capable of thinking outside the box a little bit.
Right. And I mean, you have to understand the entire planet, including you and me, have been mind controlled, since our birth. And so we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know that we don't know it. But we also have been very, very programmed to dismiss things outside of our paradigm. And so, most people are not, they're so programmed, they're just not capable of breaking out of their box.
I think a lot of that programming is extremely subtle too. It gives you beliefs that you don't even know you have because they're so deeply implanted.
Yeah, especially
if you're plugging into the beliefs of what's impossible, for example.
That's right. That's right. When you don't watch TV and plug into social media and use a cell phone, It's very, very easy to see the mind control when you look at it. It's
Right.
like when I see what's going on in the media, particularly the mainstream media, but also in the alternative media as well. It's just full of mind control and program people. It's program people programming other people. And so, it's like if you want to step outside of the programming and the mind control and step out of the matrix, you first have to accept the fact that you're mind controlled.
I think you have to not only accept it, after you accept it, you have to see it.
Right. And you have to seek ways of breaking it. And that's one of the things I'm going to be focused on this year, is teaching people how to identify mind control and how to step out of it and break it.
Right.
And one of the main ways is by not plugging into social media, not plugging into, media and news online, on television, movies, whatever. Just completely disconnect from that crap for a while and meditate, clear your mind, feed your mind and your brain and your body so you can focus. Most people can't focus for more than 30 seconds without their mind wandering.
Right.
And it becomes apparent when you start meditating and try to focus, for example, on your breath. And so it makes it very easy to hoodwink and control people because they can't focus, they can't think straight, they can't have deep thought, and they can't use the right brain, the intuition, to see through when they're being lied to. And so we've got to break that. And, I'm not putting myself above everybody else. I'm just as mind controlled as everybody else. I just recognize it. And so I seek ways of breaking it, and I don't plug into all these media.
Right. Yeah, I found it really helpful to realize, as usual, we've got like a month of things to talk about right now in the next few minutes, but maybe we'll have to do more episodes, a little bit more often than every few years. But it seems
as far as the technological solutions,
yeah,
we have to break the programming, the scientific programming that we've been given in order to be able to create solutions. And there are some really amazing, brilliant people who've done that, who've stepped out of the paradigm and are making some amazing technologies. I've got a friend, for example, right now who is an engineer who lives near me, brilliant, brilliant man, very successful. And he's working on developing a supplement that you can take that will turn the human body into its own EMF protection device. Now that's brilliant.
How does it work?
Well, it's proprietary and I don't know exactly, but I suspect that it involves using monoatomic minerals, or AKA ormus, to feed the body with high levels of ormus. Because when you put ormus in the body, ormus is a superconductor and it plugs into the pineal gland, plugs into the DNA, and it will unravel the DNA. It will unravel any genetic modification or damage that's been done and heal it and create the perfect blueprint for the DNA.
So I have to ask you something about ormus just before we get too much further.
Okay.
As you know, there's all different qualities and origins of ormus, and there's different procedures for processing it and producing it. Some of them use really harsh chemicals, as you know, and they all claim to have gotten rid of all that before they sell it to you. Others are on the other end of the spectrum, unprocessed, essentially unprocessed. For example, there's a sun-dried, and labeling is often very tricky. You have to know how to interpret it, because some things say sun-dried, and they are, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's done to it that you don't know about. But there's a company that's getting Dead Sea salt and concentrating it, not salt, but water, to the point that it's kind of a gel, semi-dehydrated, and all kinds of things are being claimed for that. How do you see the effect of something like that that's not called ormus, but it's like concentrated Dead Sea water from some clean area?
Well, there is no clean Dead Sea salt. Dead Sea salt is full of heavy metals and even radioactive particles.
Okay.
Wilhelm Reich, one of the things that Wilhelm Reich said was that the reason the Dead Sea was there and it was the way it was is because it was the site of an ancient nuclear war. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah was actually the story of a nuclear war, and that lake was created by a nuclear crater, and it left a lot of radiation and a lot of radioactive particles in the area, and that's why nothing grows there. there's a reason that
So the half-life was really long.
yes, and also it killed. Not only did it irradiate the place, but when you set off a nuclear detonation, it radically damages the geological structure. You know, all of the soil and the rocks, they're crystalline, and when you irradiate them with nuclear radiation, it damages the crystalline lattice and programs the minerals with negative scalar frequencies that are not harmonious to life. That's why nothing will grow there, and that's why there's such a concentration of salt there. And so anyway, when you're making ormus from Dead Sea salt, it's definitely toxic. But even if you're using a source, if you're using what's called the wet method and making these wet precipitates where you mix lye with some kind of salt and water, you're not really creating ormus. You're creating an ormus concentrate precipitate that is a silicate that has to be broken down and converted in the body or in some way into monoatomic elements. And so it's a way that average people can create it and utilize it in some ways, but it's not really monoatomic elements. And so that's not what I'm talking about, although you can make that. But if you're going to make that kind of stuff, you need to be vortexing it in magnetic fields and water to break down the precipitate into monoatomic elements and make them bioavailable.
So how do they make the best kind?
Right. Or ferment them. You can ferment them, especially if you do it in magnetic fields, and that will break them down and create true monoatomics in natural states that the body can utilize and recognize. You can vortex it in water and magnetic fields. There are various things you can do. You can run it through rodent coils that have certain frequencies pulse through them to create resonance. There's a lot of ways of doing it. Most of them are more sophisticated than the average person is going to be able to do. But the best way for average people to create ormus is either using fermentation or photosynthesis or vortexing minerals in water in magnetic fields. So, for example, you can put liquid sea minerals like concentrated liquid sea minerals in a water vitalizer and vortex it in water in a magnetic field, and it will create monoatomics, which you can then feed to yourself or to plants or animals and get amazing results. You can feed rock powders to plants and use microbes like effective microorganisms with them to break the rock powders down, volcanic rock powders, which are high in monoatomic elements. And that'll break down and the plants can uptake them, and then you'll have plants that have very high levels of monoatomics, bioavailable monoatomics in them in natural states.
So rock dust is a really critical element in bringing the soil back to its full potential.
Absolutely, yeah. You get amazing magical properties. I mean, that's one of the reasons why when you see volcanic eruptions and afterwards, very quickly, you see plants growing on bare rock, like in Hawaii and Mount St. Helens and places like that. You'll see rocks and trees growing on bare rock. How is that possible? It's because these monoatomics, volcanic rock and ash are so high in monoatomics, they create superconducting Meissner fields that plants can feed off of directly because it's scalar energy.
That really threatens the conventional NPK plant nutrition model.
Oh, yeah.
People would be saying, well, yeah, the rocks may be great for minerals, but where's the nitrogen?
Yeah. I know some guys that developed a really simple non-toxic soap made out of 6 herbs. And when you put it on soil, you mix it with water and put it on soil, it will break the minerals down into monoatomics and angstrom particles that the plants can feed on and get massive growth. And they were, they went to big ag with it thinking that they were going to be the saviors of agriculture. And they had multiple attempts on their lives. They had to move to South America.
Yeah, I was going to say, did they get shot immediately or just
exactly. That's what happened. They got shot and poisoned and they had to move to South America. And so, and they told me not to name their product publicly, so I can't tell what it is. But, that's the kind of stuff that happens when you get out with real solutions. But these are the kinds of things that people can do for themselves if they want to play with ormus, is use fermentation also. You can take rock powders or liquid minerals and you can put them in ferments and then put the ferment bucket or vessel into a magnetic field, either surround it with magnetite sand or with magnets and and then you can create ormus that way, very simply, very naturally, very inexpensively.
Ormus as a fertilizer, basically, right?
You can use it as a fertilizer, or you can ingest it. You can make food. I mean, this is one of the things I've been teaching for many years, is how to grow and ferment high ormus superfoods and sprouts and things like that just have nutrient levels off the charts. I'll give an example. Dr. Joe Mercola, who's a friend and a neighbor of mine, years ago, when he moved to Florida, he got interested. He went down to Hippocrates Health Institute in South Florida, and he came back all excited about sprouting. And so I was up at his house, and he had some sprouts growing, and they looked really pathetic. And I said, "What's going on here?" And he said, "Oh, well, I'm trying to sprout." And I said, "Well, just do these 4 things. Use ormus and scalar energy and a couple other things. I think the proper, rock powders and this, that, and the other." And so, being Dr. Mercola, he didn't just blow it off. He wrote it down and he did it.
Right.
And about 10 days later, he calls me up. "What the hell is this stuff?"
Yeah.
And I said, "What?" And he said, not only did he get amazing sprouts, but he sent them off to a lab to have them analyzed, and the nutrient levels were off the charts.
Right.
And so I wound up having a 4-hour conversation with him about scalar energy and ormus and what it can do. And these are 2 major things that are going to be keys for us to protect ourselves and heal ourselves from all of this stuff, whether it's 5G or nuclear fallout or, genetic modification and vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. And so he said, after that conversation, he said, "I haven't been this excited since I went from allopathic to naturopathic."
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of really amazing, cool things we can do with very inexpensively with these concepts, but you have to step out of the mainstream science narrative and paradigm and open your mind up. And the bottom line is, somebody the other day, I was doing a webinar, and somebody said, "Well, how do we know this is true?" And I said, "Simple, do it. Just do it.
See what happens."
Try it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So don't take my word for it. Go out and do this stuff and see, get your own truth, get your own results.
When you're talking about using rock dust with sprouts, you don't want to directly eat the rock dust, right? I mean, it's going to be really
certain
abrasive.
rock powders you actually can, like azomite, you can actually take it directly, and the body will break not all of it down, but it'll break down enough of it. You'll get all kinds of minerals and ormus.
Would you normally rinse it off so you don't have to, have your teeth be scarred and stuff like that? Because chewing on rock dust could be a little severe.
What I recommend people to do is to ferment rock powders and make your own, and not just rock powders. I tell people to make these brews where you take, effective microorganisms, which is a probiotic culture, and you put it in water and you mix it with some molasses, and then you can throw in rock powders, you can throw in herbs, you can throw in crappy supplements that are not very bioavailable. You can put in superfoods. You can put all kinds of stuff into it and create these very custom tailored brews that are massive in ormus, massive in nutrients, massive in energetics, and very, very healing. And for, pennies, you can do this. And so I've been teaching this for many years. But that's one thing you can do. Rather than eating the rock powders, you can, for example, if you do want to take a mineral supplement directly, you can take liquid sea minerals directly, and you can also ferment them.
Okay, where do you get liquid sea minerals?
Well, I've got them on my website. Concentrates, for example, liquid sea minerals. You can go online and find other brands, but it's an inexpensive one. Like 6-month supply is like $15. And, you just take a teaspoon of that, put it in a water vitalizer and vortex it, for 27 minutes in a magnetic field. And then you've got angstrom and monoatomic minerals, which you can then feed to plants. You can feed it to ferments. You can drink it yourself. You can give it to your pets.
Where do you get a water vitalizer?
You can get them online. We sell them on our website at freshandalive.com.
How expensive are they?
They're very expensive, $600, and it's a little thing that looks like a blender. Vortex is water. But if you contact us, we can give you a coupon code for $100 off. The manufacturer won't let us post it on our website publicly anymore. But if people contact us,
they won't let you publicize the coupon, you mean?
No, they won't let us publicize, a $100 discount. Because quite honestly, I think the device is overpriced by a lot. And so we give people $100 off on it.
So you're a reseller of that?
Yes.
But you're comparable to other sources, I would think, in price, right?
we're way cheaper than other sources.
Oh, you are.
Because in my mind, the thing is way overpriced.
So can we talk for a second about what it does? Because I bet almost nobody's ever heard of one of those.
Yeah, it looks like a blender. And by the way, I also teach people how to do this with a blender. And we can talk about that. But it looks like a blender, but in the bottom of it, it has, instead of a blade, it has a little propeller that's actually spun magnetically. And so the base of this thing creates a strong rotating or bucking magnetic field, and that makes this little impeller spin. And so it very gently vortexes the water, and it has this basket in the bottom of it with minerals in it. And so it will, while it's vortexing, it will dissolve those minerals, and because it's doing it in a magnetic field, it will break down the minerals, the inorganic minerals, into 100% bioavailable monoatomic elements and angstrom elements, which are mineral particles of just a few atoms per particle. Normally, with inorganic minerals and a lot of unnatural mineral forms, the particles will have tens of thousands of atoms of the element per particle, and it's too big to get into the cells and feed them. So that device, by vortexing them in water, it will break them down and make them bioavailable.
So it's using minerals that you buy with the device, or how do you get that?
Yeah, it comes with a little, like I say, it's got this little, what they call a mineral cube, but it's like a little cage with these little mineral pellets in it, and it will dissolve those mineral pellets. And after about 4 to 6 months, you have to replace the cube. But you can also just put your own liquid minerals into it. So, once you've gone through a cube, you can, dump out the remaining beads if you want and leave that in there because it holds the impeller. And then you can put liquid minerals into it or rock powders or whatever.
So could you use the liquid sea minerals that you have on your site for that?
Yeah, I use both the minerals in the mineral cube and I use the concentrates, liquid sea minerals. And sometimes I'll use rock powders and other stuff. Because I'll throw like supplements. When I do it, I'm putting in supplements in there like E3 Live, frozen blue-green algae. I might put vitamins and minerals and all kinds of stuff in there, and I'll vortex it for 27 minutes. And that will break it all down and make it bioavailable if it's not. Usually it already is. But
okay.
But it creates orments is what it really does. It creates the monoatomic versions of the minerals, and those are extremely healing and regenerative. And you can see this if you just vortex minerals in there and feed it to plants, you will see astronomical growth. Or you feed it to ferments, you will see astronomical growth. So, for example, I've made water kefir where normally water kefir, the culture looks like these little jelly beads about the size of a green pea. But when I feed it ormus water spun in a vitalizer and I ferment the water kefir in that water, the grains, as they call them, instead of being the size of a pea, they'll be the size of a large marble. And they will ferment, instead of 7 to 10 days, they'll ferment in about 5 days. So, roughly half the time, and produce much more nutrition. So that's one of the benefits of using monoatomics, in your nutrition and in your ferment.
Right. And you said that sometimes you would use the liquid sea minerals for the mineral source in the water vitalizer, and sometimes you would use something else.
Right. So, for example, I have a 5-gallon glass water dispenser in my kitchen, and I take my filtered well water and I add concentrates to it, and I will vortex it. And also, by the way, sometimes I will put ormus precipitate. So, these ormus precipitates that we talked about, making them with salts and lye, I will take some of that and put it in there and vortex it for 27 minutes, and then I'll put it in my drinking water vessel, and I will drink that water exclusively. And so that's all I drink. And then when I'm doing supplements in the morning, I will put my superfoods and rock powders, whatever I'm using, I'll throw them all together in the vitalizer, and I'll vortex them for 27 minutes, and that will create angstrom particles that are much more healing than the regular supplements by themselves. Yeah. So in that way, you can amplify the effects of your supplements and superfoods.
Yeah, because I know you talked about also using the rock dust as part of the ingredients, but the rock dust I've used for gardens and things, it's like very fine sand, it would be very hard on your teeth. So
it's not hard on your teeth. Like if you use azimite, it's like 400 grit or maybe higher. So it's very, very fine, kind of like talcum powder. But it does taste a little gritty. So I mean, you're not going to be sitting there grinding your teeth with it. But and for that reason, you don't need to do that. You can do that because azimite, for example, is really good for people with backaches and spinal issues. It's really good for regenerating the spine. So you might want to do it. But normally I don't do rock powders in my vitalizer. I just use liquid, sea minerals like concentrates in there, and then you don't get the grittiness.
Like the one you talked about.
Make it less gritty when you vortex it.
So you could use the liquid sea minerals that you talked about.
That, yeah, and like I say, other things.
What's the difference between azimite and rock dust?
Well, azimite is a specific type of rock dust. Azimite is a specific rock powder that comes from the Southwest, I think in Arizona, I believe it is. There are many, many others. There's rhyolite and Redmond minerals. There's a whole slew of rock powders. There's a great book called The Enlivened Rock Powders by Harvey Lisle, Lisle. And so if people are interested in learning about rock powders and using them for agriculture or for their own health, that's a great book to start with because it tells you all these different non-toxic rock powders and where to get them. And then there are mineral companies, like I say, like Redmond Minerals that makes Redmond Real Salt, and others. We sell, for example, a Skater Energized mixture of 5 different salts on our website called, I think it's 5 Alive Salts or something like that.
Are those earth salts or oceans?
What's that?
Are those earth salts from the ground or are they from the ocean?
They're from the ground. They're from ancient.
Because those are the old oceans that weren't polluted, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what do you think of things like Bolivian rose salt and Himalayan and stuff like that?
If they're from a good source, they can be great. For example, I've got 400 pounds of Himalayan salt that's hand mined without explosives. And I'm getting ready we're going to be putting that on our website in the next few weeks. And that stuff's great. It's not as good as the Skater Energized salt that I have because that's a mixture of Hawaiian black and Hawaiian red and Himalayan and some salts from the southwestern United States. They're all primordial underground salts.
Okay.
And then they've been Skater Energized. So that's a better mixture than just Himalayan by itself.
Those are on your site, right?
Yeah.
How expensive is that?
I think it's like $42 for a quart jar, which is about 2 or 3 pounds.
Okay,
it's a fair amount of salt.
Lasts for a while because you don't use tons of salt, hopefully.
Exactly. And it's also therapeutic. You can use it therapeutically as well as a seasoning.
Okay. And what's the deal about 27 minutes? Why is that a good length of time?
I think it has to do with the sacred geometry of the coils that they built into the vitalizer because you can set it for either 9 minutes, 18 minutes, or 27 minutes.
They like multiples of 9, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's got to do with, and if you think about this too, the universe is structured fractally based on geometry. And the geometry is of the triangles and combinations of the triangle. And so it's going to be based on geometry based on 3, 6, 9, or 12. Tesla talked about that quite a bit. And so I think that's what it has to do with, a combination of the structure, like the energetic structure of the cosmos and the energetics of the coils and maybe the geometry of the coils. I think it has something to do with that, but it's proprietary, so I don't know.
Last time we talked, the other thing I was going to mention about salt that's really potentially great healing, and there are violently opposed groups, some saying that salt is really great and essential even. Other groups saying, salt is the most evil thing in the world, except maybe raw milk is more evil, but it's pretty evil. And one thing, last time we were talking to Sam, Dr. Osmanagich, he was saying they got some salt, and because it's a crystal, this is my understanding anyway, crystals are programmable, not as widely as the energy field around a human, but it's programmable, as is water, which is a liquid crystal. And he took a bunch of salt, put it inside the pyramid that he discovered, and it could be done on a smaller scale pyramid too, and then fed the salt to a bunch of people in prisons, and they got reformed and, normal again. So salt has incredible potential.
Exactly, yeah. And Dr. Alexander Golod, the Russian pyramid scientist, did the same thing with his pyramids. He put salt in it and gave it to people and put it in prisons.
So the other thing is that, the ultimate technology, of course, is human consciousness. It's just that we're not in touch with all of it. And in our transition to that, it really helps to use some of these aids. But ultimately, that's where we're going to discover the most, right? And so in the water movie that you remember, that one of the things they were doing is the technicians were programming 3 different glasses of water and showing that it changed the frozen crystalline structure and all that. So since salt is a crystal, and you could say, well, it's less malleable than water, but all these elements are basically mostly empty space anyway. They're mostly frequency that just look solid because of how our senses are tuned to perceive them, right? So if you were able to focus your intent on salt, you could do as good, as well or better than a pyramid.
Absolutely.
Right.
I met a Buddhist monk out in Los Angeles years ago. We were both speakers at a conference, and I was so impressed with the guy. I took his class at the conference, and then I went to his office after the conference and paid for some private sessions with him while I was there. And he taught me some meditations that you can alter food and water, and take toxic food and water and reprogram it and make it non-toxic, and radically change it. So he took nasty LA tap water, which I have tested before, and I know it's in it. It's god awful.
Got everything.
Not only is it full of chemicals and toxins, it's got toilet paper and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You can actually put some black mica extract in it, and it'll drop out all the dissolved solids and stuff in it, and you can see this orange crud in the bottom of it.
Wow.
Disgusting water, right? So he just takes some nasty LA tap water, and he's going to have me drink it. I'm like, there's no way. But we did a 2-minute meditation over it with this specific Buddhist chant that he knew, and it radically altered the taste of it, right? And I drank it and didn't have any ill effects. And then he took some old crappy, like, GMO snacks and stuff, and I was like, oh, no. Yeah. And he did the same thing. We meditated over it, and then we ate it, and no ill effects whatsoever, right?
Right. And you're pretty sensitive to that stuff, so you can...
Oh, yeah, it would make me sick. If I ate a GMO, I'm out of work for days.
Yeah.
So when I got home, we were continuing our sessions over the phone, and at home I've got equipment and stuff I can test things. So when we were doing this meditation over the water, I said, hey, you know what? I want to empirically test this. And so we meditated, or actually I meditated doing this chant that he taught me over a glass of water. And it was my well water. It was filtered, but it wasn't drinking water. It was filtered for showers and stuff. Yeah. And I meditated over 2 minutes. And also before I did anything to it, I tested the pH. I had a frozen sample of it where I could see the crystallization pattern of it, which indicates a lot about its molecular structure. And I also did a GDV camera analysis of it, showing how much energy it was putting off, how much scalar energy it was putting off. So then I meditated over this water, and then I took it and tested the pH. Now, initially, the pH of it was around 7. Mm-hmm. And after meditating over it for 2 minutes, the pH rose to 9.5.
It's a big change.
And then I put it in the freezer and I froze it, and the crystallization pattern was radically different. And not only that, but now this is well water with minerals in it, and presumably is going to have some ormus in it. And I know it does have ormus because I've done things, tested my water and done things to it to extract the ormus out of it. So I know it's got ormus in it. So anyway, when I took this water that we meditated over, put it in the freezer in a little cup, not only did it freeze and have a really weird crystallization pattern, it also had this really weird bubble pattern inside of it with these like really long, weird bubbles, geometric pattern. And the water developed a stalagmite up the middle of it because the ormus I've done this before when I take water that's high in ormus that's been made bioavailable. The ormus levitates. It's anti-gravitational, and so it will actually, as the water is evaporating, it'll levitate the water molecules. And so anyway, it formed this stalagmite because it was in a freezer, and that levitating water froze, and it also climbed up the side of the vessel that it was in. So this was all from a 2-minute meditation. And, I've taught my employees this when I travel. If I can't get good bottled spring water, or even if I do get bottled spring water, I always do that 2-minute meditation on the bottle of water to radically structure it.
It's a deeper meaning of saying grace over your food.
Yes. And,
it was very specific.
One of the things that these reptilians taught me was to tone over my food and my water, because toning can radically heal your food and water.
And the tone works the best if your attention is in a certain attitude too with it. Minor differences in the subtle aspects of your attention make a huge difference.
Absolutely, because you are an antenna capturing God consciousness from the cosmos. That's kind of one way to look at that.
Yeah.
Every planet and sun in the cosmos has a black hole at its center, and the whole multiverse is a scalar energy web. And this scalar energy emanates from the centers of galaxies. It's been discovered at the centers of galaxies. Mainstream scientists say there's a black hole at the centers of galaxies. What it really is a superluminal sun. The photons that are coming out of there are going so much faster than the conventional speed of light. They appear invisible or black to us.
Right.
So our scientists call it dark energy or dark matter or whatever. But it's superluminal light. And that light energy is relayed through all the planets and the suns through their black holes are like portals for this energy.
So there's a network tying together all the central suns.
Yes.
Coming from the galactic central sun.
Yes. We have this cosmic web, this network of information and consciousness flowing through everything. It's kind of like the Force in Star Wars. And it goes through every scale of the cosmos. It's coming to us from our sun and up from the earth. And we're fractal antennas that capture it.
Exactly.
And within our own bodies, we've got millions of black holes within our own bodies. The acupuncture meridians, the brain neural pathways, there's all these different structures in the body with these superconducting monoatomic minerals that create these black holes.
Right.
So as above, so below. At every scale of the universe, we have this cosmic web of black holes.
The human organism is a lot more than what we think. And tied to that, before we have to wrap up here, because our 5 minutes is just about up here.
Okay.
But I want to ask you about another related topic, which is you mentioned deprogramming people who are caught in the the programming that we've been given to be slaves and get ready to be exterminated and the usual stuff. And I realized, depending on how good you get at that, the deprogramming issue is a really, really big deal, because not only do you get people back to what they thought was normal, which is a minute fraction of what the real normal is. What I've found is that the perpetrators who are behind what's happening systematically to our planet right now and all life on it, and a lot of people have attacked me for being completely wrong on this. Their belief says it, but I can see it now. And that is that even the worst perpetrators are only appearing bad because of the programming they're looking through. And if you could take that away, that would be a really big deal, because the bad guys would become good guys, which is what everything is made out of the same spirit. And there's no reason that can't happen.
Yeah, if you could see the other person or being's pain, then you would have total compassion for them.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of that. Years ago, before I knew any of this stuff, man, I didn't know any. I was a computer programmer, writing code and drinking sodas and eating Kit Kat bars every morning at work. I knew nothing about natural health. I knew nothing about anything. I never even heard the term Illuminati. I was your typical American eating, McDonald's double cheeseburgers and the whole 9 yards.
Very well educated, of course.
Yeah. So I had these kind of hippy dippy friends who called me up and they said, "Hey,
we want to host a rebirthing and we don't have any space to do it. Can we do it at your house? Because we had a large open living room.
They wanted to do what? Sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
A rebirthing. We had a large open living room.
Right.
And they wanted to borrow our living room. And I didn't know what rebirthing was. I never heard of that. And I was like, well, what is rebirthing? And they said, oh, it's this amazing combination of breath work and body work and emotional healing work, to release your emotional issues. And I was like, okay, sure, fine, So they had about a dozen people, and it was all people that I knew that came. And of course, my wife and I did it as well. And it was amazing. Yeah. But in the course of that rebirthing, it was a weekend workshop. It wasn't just like one hour session. It was a whole weekend. And there was a woman in the group who, everybody knew each other. We were all friends. But there was this one woman who everybody thought was a, quote, bitch. And, everybody looked out for her because she was always stirring up trouble and always angry and that kind of stuff. And in the course of that rebirthing workshop, it came out that this poor woman had been raped as a child repeatedly by her father over and over again growing up,
Yeah.
And when we saw the depth of her pain and saw her just crying from the depths of her soul over and over and over, experiencing this stuff, all of the judgment that we had about this woman went away, and she became radically different, and we became radically different. Yeah. Because we saw her pain and she was able to release it. And so, nobody thinks they're evil in their own mind. Even these people that are perpetrating population reduction and enslavement on this planet, they think they're doing a good thing. They think that they're saving the earth by getting rid of the infestation.
Yeah, but their bosses at the highest levels are worshiping actual pain and suffering for its own sake.
Right.
Satanic, right? But I'm saying this is radical, but from most people's point of view, I'm saying even those guys, even their bosses who are not in human form, they're made out of exactly the identical spirit that we are. Yeah. And their programming's nastier, but it should be possible to break through it. And that's going to have a lot to do with the future of this planet.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
Can do it in time.
Yeah, it will. It will. Exactly. I was complaining one time about the Bush family years ago when, George Bush, the two Bushes were in power. I was complaining actually to these reptilians. And one of the things they said to me was, well, actually, it takes a higher level of consciousness to play the bad guy in your reality. And I never thought about it that way. And then I got to thinking about other people in my life that I know personally that were very negative. But if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the person that I am, And
teachers come disguised.
Right. And then, Corey Goode and these other secret space program people came out and started talking about these reptilian extraterrestrials that are doing very, very damaging negative things to the planet and have been for thousands of years. And then it turns out that they're infected with these AI nanobots and they're not in control of their destiny.
Exactly. So as a hint of what you're looking forward to with the deprogramming theories and principles, obviously, we don't have time for much of it, but what I'm looking at is what are the basics and what are the different levels of evil that they could be applied to, because all those beings are only looking evil because of the programming.
Yeah, right. A lot of them want to change, they just don't know how.
Exactly. So somebody has to figure that out.
So we have to show them how. And the way, and we have to show people how. And the way that you do that, first of all, starting out, is by unplugging from media. Stop watching TV, stop watching the news, stop being on social media, stop getting your dopamine hits from Facebook or whatever, Twitter or whatever it is you're using. And what you'll find, number one, is you'll be immediately freed. Because when you're not being exposed to all the negativity and nonsense in all of those platforms, it's like being freed, Stop using your cell phone as much as you can. Right, I have a cell phone. I'm not a Luddite. I use it when I need it. But I probably now, with COVID tracing everything, I probably use it 10 minutes a month.
And you don't hold it like this when you use it.
Oh, yeah. Never put it up your head and that kind of thing. But when you start unplugging from media and start meditating, slow your brainwave states down, because cell phones radically, any wireless technology, Wi-Fi, all that stuff, it radically accelerates brainwave states, keeps you from getting into deep sleep, and then you're stressed, etc. you got to slow the brain down, relax the body, relax the brain. Then you can focus, and then your guides, yourself, God, whatever it is, however you want to conceive of it, this knowledge and information can come in through meditation and tell you what you specifically need in your life to maintain your health and happiness and safety, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a friend who just moved here from India. He's a meditator. He doesn't watch TV or anything. He's not plugged in any of that stuff. He meditates 2 hours a day. And when I saw all this stuff going on with the, elections and predictions of, possible shortages and things like that and COVID, I just mentioned him. I said, well, look, there's a lot of stuff going on, I'm hearing. So just stock up on food and water, and, be ready for possible internet outage or whatever. And he did. And this guy manifested what he needed without having to plug into any of that stuff. And we all can do that.
Right. And even if you're in a position where your daily life requirements seem to not allow you to fully withdraw, you can change the impact of it on you by building up the other frequency, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, I wish the time didn't go by so fast. We could spend another 10 hours easy, but for a bottom line, when things are not looking extremely optimistic from a realistic point of view on this plane, a lot of people feel like what they do in themselves and for self-transformation, they're one person out of 7.8 billion and it's not going to make any difference. What would you say to that?
Well, that's utterly not true. Look at what Martin Luther King did. Look at what Gandhi did. Look what we have been misguided that we're not powerful. One individual can change the planet. Yeah. You can meditate and focus on helping, some person in power that you think is doing, helping the planet. Focus on helping them, or focus on helping shift the consciousness of somebody who's doing negative things. Yeah. Get together in meditation groups and do that. Don't discount your own power. Get together with like-minded friends. Do meditation. The more that you do this stuff and the more that you see results, real world results, then you'll start to realize you really have a lot of power.
So most of those 7.8 billion people who are not doing that, they are putting out frequencies that are not coherent, right? And the ones that you can do instead, it gives you a disproportionate influence on everybody else, I would think.
It does. And it also, when you can be in the eye of the storm, when everything else around you is flying around and tearing apart, you can be just fine. I mean, 2020 was a good year for me. And COVID had nothing to, no impact. It was actually kind of good for business, but COVID was not a concern at all because I've been teaching for 15 years how to deal with bioweapons. That was no big deal. Right. The most difficult thing for me was dealing with stalkers that I had because so many people are angry and upset these days. And I learned lessons in that and how to deal with that simply by using these very things I'm talking about. Meditation, sending love.
Yeah. Like it's really hard for them to latch on to a conflict with somebody who's in harmony, right?
Right. Because behind the obvious physical stuff that's going on, behind all of that, there's consciousness. And not just your consciousness, not the consciousness of the people that are obviously involved, but also the consciousness of the non-physical entities that are feeding off of it or manipulating it or helping out. You can call them angels or demons or spirits or spirit guides, whatever you want to call it. There is a whole realm of non-physical reality where consciousness exists and they interact with us all the time. Right. And so behind the obvious things that are going on, there are these spiritual things or non-physical things going on that we need to understand is there and interact with it, work with it to benefit.
And they have to follow certain laws as well, right? So
absolutely,
they're waiting in a lot of cases for an invitation.
Yeah, there is universal law. There's certain ways that the universe works. It just, it's just the way matter and energy and consciousness works. It's like, you can say all day long that I'm going to meditate and, it's like Jonathan Living Seagull. you can meditate all day long, but if you jump off the Empire State Building, chances are pretty good you're going to hit the bottom and die.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if you're a really, really, really powerful being, and I've met a few,
then
they could probably jump off and not hit the ground.
Right.
But
right.
Just that takes a lifetime of work.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a lot more to look at. But I guess the message would be, don't wait, start. Use what you know about now and keep learning more.
And the one thing that I always tell people, particularly when they're down and ejected, is the one giant, huge trump card that we always have had, and we always will have, is that consciousness creates reality. And so when you really get that you're creating your reality, then you can stay focused on creating an uplifting reality and have an amazing time amidst the chaos. It's like while all this COVID stuff's going on, I know all kinds of people that are freaking out and suffering and all kinds of horrible things.
Right.
I'm hanging out in Florida with my friends having bonfires and potlucks, and we're not wearing masks, and we don't give a crap.
Yeah.
Because we've got solutions for all this stuff.
Right. Exactly. Well, if you get time, we have more to talk about, and we'll do some more episodes.
Sure.
But, hold on, and we'll say goodbye in the break here. Okay, you guys, there goes Ken Rohla, who is the creator of Fresh and Alive. A lot of amazing products, some of which I've bought and used, and they've been great. The Rest Shield and other things that we've talked about, and I haven't been to the site for a while, so I need to go again and check it out. And I'm not getting money for telling you this in case anybody's wondering. It's just, he's doing a great job. Freshandalive.com, very interesting site that's worth looking at. Freshandaliveclub.com, which I didn't know about before, is his private club for more uncensored material. I think I'm going to join that. Sounds like Doug is too. Freshandaliveclub.com. It's really cheap. It's almost free. It's like $5 one time. He's just setting it up not for revenue, but for a place to not get censored. And it sounds like it's a really good thing. And, the bottom line of our discussion, I think, is what we've talked about for a long time. Self-transformation first. And then once you really start doing that, it affects everybody else. And as we talked about with Ken, I think it's the best way to get directly to the rulers, the perpetrators of the ongoing assault against humanity, that even the ones who seem to be totally consciously, intentionally doing everything they're doing, they're victims of programming, as we've talked about with Ken a lot. And that programming is penetrable, breakable, dissolvable if we get to a point where we have the skill to do it. And I think that can be done. That's kind of the premise of Planetary Healing Club. So if you want to be part of that, you're welcome and invited wherever you are in the world. In fact, we'd like to have people from all over the world in that club working together, not only on physical health things that are forbidden knowledge in America and most of the world right now, but ancient health understanding about nature and how to harmonize with it, but also consciousness work beyond the physical part that most people don't even know or wouldn't believe that it's actually real. They think some kind of new age nonsense belief. It's not like that. The reality is way beyond what our rudimentary intellects have grasped at this point. And fortunately, there are ways to get in touch with it, and not just get in touch with it and experience it, but use it, which is, to me, the urgent priority at this point, because I have a pretty good grasp of where the rulers intend to take us right now, the details of how and why, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should reverse it. We don't have to do anything bad to them. We can actually help rescue them so that they have a change of heart within the power structure. And I really think, however silly that may sound to people, that that's still possible. I don't know how much time we've got, but we've got the immediate present, and I think we should use it. To not just complain about what's happening, but get in touch with something that they have no defense against. It's not on the physical level. And we get into more detail in the club meetings. PlanetaryHealingClub.com. Or if you have questions about it, just email me richard@lostartsradio.com, and I'll get to it as soon as I can and answer questions to see if it's worth your time to participate. It's not a belief system or a religion or anything. It's practical tools and protocols that we can use to be more effective at turning around what's going on right now. What else? He mentioned some products that sound good. I didn't know about them. And Liquid Sea Minerals, I thought sounded really good. And the Water Vitalizer, it's kind of expensive, but I want to read about it. So I think those things are on freshandalive.com, and there's a lot more there. We'll have Ken back because we barely scratched the surface of what there really is to talk about. The other thing is we have no commercials. Anybody that would like to help keep us on the air and actually fund some of the projects that we've got waiting that can't move forward until we get funds for them. It's mostly through donations of people that think what we're doing might be of value and they want to help us keep doing it. That's at donate buttons on lostartsradio.com and lostartsresearchinstitute.org and subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. Also really advisable to subscribe to our free channel at brighteon.com, and we're getting on more non-censoring platforms all the time now, so watch for that. But yeah, if you want to support us, not if you're struggling for survival, don't do it then. But if you've got resources, we'll use them well if you feel like supporting us. I appreciate it. Questions and comments and show suggestions, and on this Sunday show that you're watching right now, we look for inspirational guests and organizations that are doing something positive and constructive and useful for individuals in society and try to bring those out. We'll keep having amazing people and groups on as quickly as we can find them, and we've got a lot in line right now waiting to come on. So what else? What did I forget? I think that's most of it. But stay in touch. Your feedback is always really invited. And if you want to try out Planetary Healing Club, that meets Saturdays at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9, is that right? 4:30, 5:30, I think, 5:30 Pacific. Anyway, it's on the site. And 3 hours later Eastern Time. And that's live and interactive. And Doug and I are there in person every week. And I think you might find that very educational and useful on a whole other level. And we also have Lost Arts Radio Live, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. And yeah, that one's 4:30 to 5:30, and then we have a half-hour break, and then 6 Pacific and 9 Eastern. Every Saturday we have Planetary Healing Club. But Lost Arts Radio Live is first, and that one's about current events and related issues to that. And what I'm trying to do with that one right now, that's our public show, whereas the Planetary Healing Club is private. But on the public show, there's so much of concern, you might say, that's happening in the world right now. I'm trying to put it together, and I work on this all week leading up to the Saturday show in a way that it's accurate and educational about what we're really faced with, but not in a way that's going to make people just feel defeated and give up and overwhelmed and that kind of stuff, because I don't really feel like that's our situation. The power of consciousness that Ken was alluding to is so powerful. It's just the problem is it's asleep in most people right now, or it's just in the beginning stages of waking up. And as that gets stronger, if it can be done quickly enough, there's still time to turn everything around. And I think that would be good for us to do at this point. Not just entertaining, interesting shows, but practical stuff that you can use. That's planetaryhealingclub.com, but you can also do it on your own, do it with a friend that has a similar approach to you, and take care of yourself, because it's the best way you can help the rest of the world. Don't let yourself fall apart just because things are stressful. That's when you have to do the best job you can to hold yourself together, become stronger, get in touch with spirit, uncover what your own consciousness really is, because there's almost no knowledge of that these days, and it needs to come back like right away. So do what you can. Hope you have a great week. I know it's starting tomorrow. And remember, good things can happen just as suddenly as anything bad. And a lot of it's up to you. What Ken was talking about today with consciousness creating your own reality, it's not just something comforting to believe. It's really true. And if you do it, you can prove it to yourself, and that's the beginning. And see what we can do with it, helping each other. So have a good week. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio on Subscribestar.com. Just go to Subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio to find our rewards program, offering 10 different giving levels starting at just $5 a month. We offer incredible value for any rewards level, from extra monthly interview videos not available publicly to subscription-based Planetary Healing Club videos once, twice, or 3 times a month, to private counseling sessions with Lost Arts Radio host Richard Sachs, to tech help with me, Doug Diamond. We even have one option where you can be the star on Lost Arts Radio as our guest on a specially produced show just for you. We conduct an interview with you and broadcast it to our growing network and listenership. Our Subscribestar levels are one of a kind and offer great rewards for any budget. Please help support Lost Arts Radio. We can't do it without you. With increasing censorship on many of our channels, we really need your support today to keep doing what we're doing. As Richard says, we're not even at survival level yet. Lost Arts Radio has 3 weekly shows. Lost Arts Radio Live each Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, which is a live stream currently on multiple platforms in case we get banned from some of the larger ones. Right now, we're on 2 YouTube channels, Facebook Live, Periscope, which is Twitter, Twitch, and DLive. You can access these broadcasts by going to www.lostartsradio.com/live for all the links to those channels. The Planetary Healing Club meets right after Lost Arts Radio Live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Saturday nights. And our Sunday show with guests airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday nights on our Blog Talk Radio channel, our YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and on Brighteon. Be sure to sign up for our free email list just in case we do get banned on big tech's platforms. It's just a matter of time, really. They don't like the stuff we talk about, and they do not want the truth out there. In fact, they have already attacked us numerous times. Join our free email list so we can let you know where we are and how to access our shows. The sign-up button is right on the top right on most pages of our website. The best starting point for all things Lost Arts Radio is our main site, lostartsradio.com, where you can find the hottest news selection videos that we curate just for you. Those are on the homepage and added to daily, as well as articles and breaking news about information you really need to know. Our show archives, the 10 most recent shows, are right on our homepage, as well as our Blog Talk Radio page at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, or just click the All Things Radio Show tab right on our website. We're in the podcast directory on iTunes, and all of our shows except the banned ones are on our YouTube channels at Lost Arts Radio and at Diamond Disc. Our Brighteon page is really taking off, and we often have editors' picks videos right on their homepage. Visit brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. On our site, you can also access our free listener forum as well as sign up for the Planetary Healing Club, which is just $25 a month, where you get private access to a one-on-one interaction with host Richard Sachs and myself and the other club members who participate live. More info can be found at planetaryhealingclub.com. We're providing solutions in there to make the world a better place. Come join us. Stay tuned, because up next, you'll get to hear a really great song by an independent artist that we're doing our best to support. Go to lostartsradio.com/music for the full list of all the great songs and bands that we spin on our audio-only podcast shows. If you're in a band and want to submit a song for consideration for airplay on Lost Arts Radio, visit my website at diamonddiscaudio.com for more information about the music placement, mastering, and mixing work that I do. Thanks again for listening to and supporting Lost Arts Radio. We love having you as part of our family to learn, experience, and grow with.
stars like glitter fill the sky. It's a beauty we can see. It all means nothing without you and me. Only we have this gift inside to be the